Hi everybody, I'm Jack and this is Raw Tropical Living. I'd like to thank you for joining me again today. Let's get right into the topic. The topic today is about olive oil. Is olive oil healthy for you? While I'm talking mainly about olive oil because it's probably been billed as a healthy oil and is probably one of the more popular oils, we're really talking about all oils, to tell you the truth. As you know from some of my videos, I've told you the last several months I've been watching a lot more of the 80-10-10 people and seeing how they do things. And one of their big tenets is no oils. They don't use any oils. And I've always kind of said, I don't know, what about that? Olive oil is healthy for you. But a couple of months ago, I just started looking at it in a different way, and I started, okay, well, let's research this. Let's look into it a little bit. Let's don't just bury our head in the sand and say, no, I don't believe that, so I'm going to eat olive oil. I'm going to drop some links at the bottom in the description of this video when I'm done. And one of the first people I'm going to put a link to, not necessarily because I'm using his information as a reference, but is a guy called Plant-Based Athlete. He posted something on Facebook a while back, and I think he had a video on it too. And he's a very well-spoken, rational type guy. And when somebody like him speaks like he speaks, I can't exactly remember why, but he was kind of the one that triggered me to start looking into this. I think I even asked him a question on Facebook, and he was kind enough to respond to me. So I started looking into the oil thing. I'm going to use my trusty notes again. But one of the things that I have noticed about the oil is whether you're going to say no oil whatsoever or whatever, it is a slippery slope. Because I know for somebody like me, when I got really skinny and I wanted to start gaining weight again, I just thought, oh, woohoo, there's no rules. As long as I'm staying vegan, as long as I'm staying raw, I can eat anything. So, I mean, there were times there were several periods there where I was just so heavy on the olive oil and I could feel it. And I started, even though I wasn't putting on weight, I started just feeling a little softness around the midsection. So that's when I started looking into this oil thing. And I've got quite a bit of notes here, and I'm going to put, besides putting a link, basically out of thanks to Plant-Based Athlete, I'm going to put some more links when I get finished with this video. One guy that really resonates with me, and I've watched a lot of his stuff, and he's just he's a surgeon. I can't remember if he's a cardiac surgeon or not, and I'm sure most of you have probably heard of him, is Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. And he's got a good no oil video where he talks about it that I'm going to share. And he's also written a book that you might check out. I haven't read this book yet, but I would like to read it. In fact, I might buy this one on Amazon. This would be a good read on the plane. It's called Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And one of the quotes that he said, and he said this in his video, and I think he says it in his book also, is no oil! Exclamation point. Not even olive oil, which goes against a lot of other advice out there about so-called good fats. The reality is that oils are extremely low in terms of nutritive value. They contain no fiber, no minerals, and are 100% fat calories. You hear that? 100% fat calories. And above all, they contain saturated fat, which immediately injures the endothelial lining of the arteries when eaten. It doesn't matter whether it's olive oil, corn oil, coconut oil, or any other kind. Avoid all oil. That's pretty strong. And when you see this guy speak, if it was another hippie like me telling you this, you'd just be like, oh, whatever. But this guy, he lends credit. You can just kind of see by the way he talks, he lends credibility to what he says. Another guy that's done a lot of work in this field. Well, I've got a quick mention of this guy, Dr. Michael Klaper, K-L-A-P-E-R, and I'm going to put a link to his video down there. He explains it very well also. He's basically saying the same thing as Dr. Esselstyn, but he's another authoritative source. He's the type of person that has the facts and that you will tend to believe. He did a study. He's with the University of Maryland, and he did a study back in 2000. And he based his study on the Lyon Heart Study, which is a big-time study that that got us all to eat the Mediterranean diet. Basically, he wanted to see how olive oil, salmon, and canola oil actually affect the blood vessels. Now, I'm reading this word for word because this is some important stuff and there's no way I can remember all of this. Using the brachial artery tourniquet test, he had 10 healthy volunteers with normal cholesterol and just 50 grams of fat in the form of olive oil in bread, canola oil in bread, and salmon. Measuring their arterial blood flow before and after each meal, Vogel could tell whether or not a meal was causing damage to the endothelial lining of the brachial artery, based on how the blood was flowing through the artery after the meal was eaten. The results really surprised him. The olive oil, the good oil, the olive oil, restricted blood flow by 31% after the meal. The canola oil restricted it by 10%, and the salmon reduced it by only 2%. Now, when the arteries constrict, the endothelium, the vessel's lining, is injured, and that triggers plaque buildup or arteriosclerosis. So, the finding out of all this, it says, contrary to the hypothesis we had going in, our study found that omega-9, oleic acid, rich olive oil impairs endothelial function after eating. So if you've been using olive oil because you think it's ready, he says it's time to think again. These are a couple of cases right here. The only person that I see advocating olive oil is Dr. McCullough. I like Dr. McCullough's stuff. I watch a lot of Dr. McCullough's videos, but more so I read his website. I follow him on Twitter a lot. And he is a very convincing guy. He does agree, like most of us. Let's take back a step when we're talking about olive oil. One of the main things about olive oil, whether you're eating it or not, I think almost everybody in the health movement agrees on, we don't want to be heating olive oil. Olive oil is a carcinogenic. All oils are carcinogenic when heated. So even if you are, whatever you take from this, or whatever you take, if you go study this a little bit or read some more about it, whatever you take from it, whether you don't eat oil or not, definitely don't heat the oil. In particular with olive oil, one of the problems with olive oil is it has an abundance of oleic acid. And this creates an imbalance on the cellular level that can inhibit prostaglandin production. And that increases the risk of breast cancer and heart disease. There's a couple of other little things down here. It's pretty much, like I say, I looked at this with an open mind because I like olive oil. And I wanted to find, no, that's some more pseudoscience, these people talking about no oil, we don't eat oil. But I found too many people giving me too many convincing arguments against olive oil, to be honest with you. Here's a website, and I'll put a link to their website also. This was just, like I say, when I look at these subjects, like this is, all these notes here are a compilation. Like I've gone to a number of websites, I've watched a number of videos, and I try to see where they all have in common and if any of them contradict. And on the point of olive oil, they're kind of all on the same page. I went to a website by, and I believe he or she, I think it's she, has a YouTube channel also called, it's Happy Herbivore. And she had a pretty good point here, but this is from the website. There is no oil naturally occurring in nature. It needs to be pressed and extracted out of something else. Okay, so, what is our mantra, most of us, whether raw, vegan, low fat, whatever, it's all about plant-based whole foods. So this is not natural. It has to be extracted. Our ancestors did not eat oil, but they ate olives. She says, I would rather eat the olives than the oil purely on this logic alone. Olive oil activates clotting factor 7 as much as butter. Also is implicated as a risk factor for breast cancer, which that's what we just talked about with the oleic acid. Look. So am I going to stop eating olive oil? I can't say that, but I will say this: for the last 2 months, almost 2 months, for the first 2 months of the year, I have cut drastically back on olive oil. I do kale chips. I dehydrate kale chips, and I sell them. around the area here, and I eat some myself. And I would say since January 1st, that is, no, I got caught the other day. I got caught the other day somewhere, and I had to have a salad, and I just really needed some food, and yeah, I didn't have any lemon juice, so I had some olive oil, but I've only had oil maybe a couple of times in these last couple of months. I've had some kale chips, but usually there's only about maybe 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons of oil that go into the whole batch of kale chips, and like 10 or 12 bags come out of that batch, so that's pretty low. So basically, I'm going to keep studying on this, and I'm not saying that I'm not going to eat olive oil at all, I'm not going to eat other oils at all, but it has opened my eyes enough to where it is going to be more of a special, like something special. You know, maybe if it's a special occasion, or every once in a while, maybe if I come across a recipe that I want to use it. But yeah, I've pretty much become convinced that we don't need to be eating a lot of oil. I know a lot of people disagree on this, and I'm actually hoping maybe this one in particular, this video, I'd like to get some discussion going on this. I'd like to hear your points of view. I would like to have, if you've got any questions, if you've got any pro-oil facts, any references, I'd love to see some links. I would love to read some stuff. If you've got some credible people on YouTube that think that olive oil is okay, they take a different view, I'd love to see it. But for right now, yeah, I'm pretty much landing on, won't say no olive oil, because yeah, I'm still going to use them in my kale chips. I am going to try to lower it in my kale chips though. I might even try to do a batch with none and see how it comes out, but I still think you need a little bit in there. But anyhow, if you like this video, I'd appreciate if you give me a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel, and ask questions, make comments. Shoot, if I get enough people asking questions, I'll even do a question and answer video. Like I say, if I don't know it, and I'm not pretending, like I say, I'm not an expert. A lot of this stuff, like this whole oil video here, was something that I've been doing. It's almost like I'm writing a term paper, but I didn't write, I just did a video. I've been making these notes and studying for the past almost month now, just because I've been interested in it. But anyhow, thanks again for joining me today, and I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Be happy, be healthy, and eat something green. Peace.